You want to know the truth? Your avoidant ex is not out there living some fairy tale life without you. Stop romanticizing their silence. Stop assuming their detachment means strength. Because here's the jaw-dropping reality. Most avoidants aren't thriving after they discard you. They're barely surviving. That cold exterior, that ghosting, that sudden shift from "I love you" to "I need space." It isn't power, it's panic. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But avoidants do the opposite. They run from their own mind. They dodge the mirror. They numb instead of face the truth. And if you've been following my Avoidant X series from Volume 1 all the way through the last episodes, you already know silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. Your silence is forcing them to face a storm they never prepared for. First off, thank you for showing up again. Thank you for investing your time in this series. I know these videos are long. I know your attention could be anywhere else right now. But if you've made it through previous volumes, you already understand why I keep these deep. Because surface-level advice doesn't cut it when you're dealing with someone who dismantled your heart and walked away like it was nothing. So here's my challenge to you. Don't scroll. Don't skip. Don't half-listen. Commit to watching this video all the way through. This isn't just another relationship video. This is a roadmap for clarity, closure, and personal power. And if you're tired of the guessing games, the emotional chess, the what-ifs that eat you alive at 2 a.m., then invest these next minutes into yourself, once and for all. Because by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what's going on in their head. You're going to recognize the 7 hidden signs that your avoidant ex is struggling without you, no matter how hard they try to hide it. Let me promise you something. If you stay until the end, if you take in every sign I'm about to break down, you'll never see their silence the same way again. Instead of doubting yourself, you'll start recognizing the cracks in their armor. And once you see those cracks, you'll understand the truth. You were never the weak one in this story. You were the storm they couldn't contain. Now let's talk about that void. That deafening absence when your phone doesn't light up. That pit in your stomach when they post a story pretending to be happy. You think they're moving on. You think they've replaced you. You think their silence is proof they don't care. But let me tell you something. Psychology confirms. Avoidants feel the absence more than they feel the presence. Think about it. When you were there, loving them, supporting them, giving your all, they minimized it. They convinced themselves they didn't need it. But once it's gone, once your voice, your energy, your stability disappears, that's when the real struggle begins. Harvard studies on attachment show that avoidant individuals suppress their need for closeness. But the suppression doesn't erase the need. It amplifies it subconsciously. They pretend they don't need you while secretly aching for the comfort they swore they didn't want. That ache, that's their struggle, and it's silent torture. So if you've ever thought, do they even miss me? Do they even notice I'm gone? The answer is yes, but here's the twist. They'll never admit it. Not to you, not to their friends, not even to themselves. Instead, they scramble, they distract, they self-sabotage, they line up rebounds, they dive into work, they rearrange their life just enough to stay busy, but not enough to feel fulfilled. And that's exactly what you're about to learn in this video, the 7 undeniable signs that give their secret away. But before we dive into those signs, I need you to make me a promise. I need you to decide right now that you're not going to passively consume this content. You're going to engage with it. You're going to reflect on it. You're going to let it rewire the way you view yourself and the way you view them. Because this isn't just about understanding your avoidant ex. It's about reclaiming your own power. Seneca once said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." And wasting time obsessing over someone who already showed you they don't know how to love properly, that's theft. theft of your time, your energy, your peace. Let's strip away the illusion right now. When your avoidant ex goes silent, it's not peace, it's pressure. And the very first sign they're secretly struggling without you is this: their silence doesn't calm them down, it eats them alive. See, most people assume silence means strength, that if your ex isn't texting, calling, or showing any signs of missing you, it must mean they've moved on. Wrong. Dead wrong. Silence is not their superpower. Silence is their prison. Think about it. When you were in their life, you absorbed the noise. You gave them reassurance, warmth, validation, energy. And even if they pretended not to need it, you were the emotional thermostat that kept them from freezing in their own avoidance. Now, that silence they thought they wanted, it becomes a mirror, and avoidants hate mirrors. Because in silence there's no distraction, no one to blame, no one to project onto, just themselves, their choices, their consequences. Attachment theory makes it crystal clear. Avoidant individuals deactivate their attachment system by creating distance. They withdraw, they suppress, they numb. It's how they've survived emotionally since childhood. But here's the catch: deactivation doesn't equal elimination. Psychologists call it the rebound effect. Suppress something long enough and it bounces back stronger. Like holding a beach ball underwater, sooner or later, it shoots to the surface with explosive force. So when they go silent, they're not getting rid of you. They're pushing you down in their subconscious. And the harder they push, the more energy it takes. Until suddenly, the beach ball bursts through memories of you, flashes of your smile, moments of intimacy, and they drown in the very silence they created. That's why silence isn't serenity for them, it's suffocation. Most people assume that if an ex isn't talking to you, it must mean you've been forgotten. But that's a shallow interpretation. What's really happening is this: their brain is screaming louder in the silence than it ever did when you were around. On the outside, they'll look calm, collected, even smug, posting pictures like life is better than ever, acting unbothered, acting above it. But inside, they hear echoes of you, your laugh, your voice, the rhythm of your presence. They didn't realize it while you were around because avoidants are numb to what's consistently there. But the second you pull your energy away, boom, their brain goes into withdrawal. Neuroscience proves it. Studies on attachment show that when we lose connection, our brain lights up in the same regions as physical pain. Loss of emotional closeness literally hurts like injury. So when your avoidant ex tries to sit in silence, it's not relief, it's pain dressed up as pride. They don't text you, not because they don't care, but because reaching out feels like surrender. And if there's one thing an avoidant can't tolerate, it's the idea of needing someone. So instead, they wrestle with silence, and every day that silence gets heavier. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Avoidants never learn that discipline. They think controlling outside events by ghosting you, blocking you, disappearing is what gives them strength. But the longer they sit in silence, the more they realize the truth. The real battle isn't outside, it's inside. And here's the part that should light a fire under you. Their silence isn't proof of strength, it's proof of weakness. Because they're too terrified to face their own emotions, their own grief, their own need for love. So how do you know their silence is eating them alive? Let me paint it for you. They post random distractions, trips, nights out, sudden new hobbies. They're not living, they're performing. They delete or archive old photos of you, then quietly put some back. Because erasing you feels impossible. They go dark on social media altogether because the silence isn't just with you, it's with the world. They're retreating into themselves, hoping the storm passes. All of it screams the same thing: they're not okay. And here's the irony. The very thing they thought would protect them, silence becomes the very thing that reveals their struggle. So don't break their silence. Don't rescue them from their own struggle. Don't let your craving for reassurance ruin the one thing that's finally teaching them what life without you feels like, because the louder their silence gets, the clearer it becomes. They're the ones unraveling, not you. You need one thing: discipline. The discipline to let silence work in your favor, because the first sign your avoidant ex is struggling without you isn't in what they say. It's in what they can't handle, and they can't handle silence. Key point 1. The illusion of control is their biggest prison. You want to know the first hidden struggle your avoidant ex won't admit? It's this: their entire identity is built on an illusion of control. See, avoidants love to act like they're the ones in charge. They pulled away, right? They left first. They were the ones who said, "I need space," or "I just can't do this anymore." To them, that's power. That's proof they're untouchable. That's their way of convincing themselves they're the one driving the car while you're left standing on the roadside. But here's the paradox they'll never confess: that illusion of control. It's their biggest prison. Think about it. Every move an avoidant makes, every ghost, every withdrawal, every shutdown is just another desperate attempt to control what they fear most: rejection, intimacy, and abandonment. They don't leave because they don't care. They leave because they care too much. But if they let themselves admit that, they'd have to face the truth. They don't know how to handle closeness. So instead, they run. They tell themselves, "I left first. I ended it before I could get hurt. I'm the one who won." But ask yourself this: if they really won, why are they still checking your stories? Why are they still watching you in silence? Why do they still feel that pit in their stomach when the reality of you moving on starts to creep in? Because deep down, they know control doesn't equal peace. Control is a performance, and performances are exhausting. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But your avoidant ex does the exact opposite. They ignore their mind and they try to control outside events, including you. That's why they keep their walls up. That's why they pull the rug out just when you thought things were getting stable. That's why they ghost, then breadcrumb, then ghost again. It's all one big performance to protect the fragile little voice inside that whispers, "If you let someone too close, they'll see the real you." And the real you isn't enough. That's the hidden struggle. That's the chain they drag with them every single day. And the more they pretend to be in control, the heavier it gets. But here's the brutal part. They'll never admit it. Not to their friends. Not to you. Not even to themselves. Because once they admit that control is an illusion, they'd have to face the very thing they've been running from all along: their own emotional nakedness. And avoidants would rather live behind glass walls forever than admit they're scared of what they feel. Here's where it gets interesting for you. Because while they're out there clinging to their fake sense of control, your silence, your detachment, your refusal to play the game starts to flip the script. Suddenly, you're not the one spinning anymore. They are. They thought ghosting you meant they had control. But when you didn't chase, that control snapped like a twig. They thought ignoring your texts meant they held the power. But when you went no contact and actually stayed silent, that power boomeranged right back in their face. They thought they were the ones pulling strings until the puppet cut the cords. And now, whether they admit it or not, that illusion of control feels more like quicksand. The harder they cling, the deeper they sink. Let's talk psychology for a second. Studies show that people with avoidant attachment styles often experience what's called cognitive dissonance, a psychological tug-of-war between what they want and what they fear. On one hand, they crave closeness, connection, love. On the other hand, they're terrified of losing it. So what do? They chase control. They micromanage intimacy by keeping you at arm's length. But here's the kicker. Control never satisfies the craving. It's like drinking salt water when you're dying of thirst. The more they drink, the thirstier they become. The more they control, the emptier they feel, and eventually that emptiness catches up to them. Seneca once said, "A man who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than is necessary." That's your avoidant ex. They sabotage the relationship before it can hurt them. They ghost before you can leave them. They pull away before you can reject them. And in doing so, they end up suffering double. They suffer the loneliness of pushing away real love, and the shame of knowing they created the very wound they were trying to avoid. That's why avoidants end up haunted. That's why months later, when you've built yourself up, when you've detached, when you've moved into clarity, that's when they start circling back. Not because they've changed, not because they've grown, but because the prison of control finally collapsed on top of them. So here's what you need to take from this first hidden struggle. Don't envy their fake control. Don't waste energy imagining them winning. Because the truth is, every step they take to protect themselves is another step deeper into the pit. Your silence? That's not weakness. That's not you losing. That's the mirror they can't stand to look into. And one day, maybe not today, maybe not next week, maybe not even in the next few months, they'll have to face it. They'll have to admit that their control wasn't control at all. It was fear. It was fragility. It was a cage. And by the time they realize it, it's too late. So write this down. Burn it into your mind. Their control is not strength. It's a cage they built to protect themselves from you, but it ended up trapping them instead. That's hidden struggle number one, the illusion of control. And the longer you stay silent, the clearer that illusion becomes. Not to you, but to them. Key point 2, they fear intimacy more than they fear losing you. Here's the second hidden struggle your avoidant ex will never admit, and it cuts deeper than the first. It's this: they fear intimacy more than they fear losing you. Let that sink in for a second, because to most people that sounds insane. How can someone be more terrified of closeness than of losing someone who actually loves them? But that's the paradox of an avoidant. That's their twisted wiring. That's the silent, invisible battle raging in their chest every time they're with you. See, you thought their distance meant they didn't care. You thought the lack of affection, the cold shoulders, the disappearing acts were proof you didn't matter to them. But the truth is the opposite. You mattered too much. Because intimacy is exposure. Intimacy is nakedness. Intimacy is allowing another human to see all of you. The flaws, the insecurities, the mess, the fears, the scars. You don't even want to acknowledge yourself. And your avoidant ex? They can't handle that. So what do? They run. They put up walls. They keep intimacy at arm's length, even if it means losing the one person who was actually trying to love them. Here's the crazy part. Your avoidant ex is not afraid of being alone. They're afraid of being seen, and that fear is stronger than their desire for connection. Imagine this. You're holding out your heart, raw and real, saying, "I love you, I choose you, I see you." And instead of leaning in, they flinch, they pull back, they build a wall higher and higher, because your love feels like pressure to them. Not because you're wrong, not because you're needy, not because you're too much, but because your love threatens to break down the armor they've worn their entire life. That's why intimacy scares them more than loneliness ever could. Seneca once said, "Most powerful is he who has himself in his own power." But here's the hidden struggle. Your avoidant ex doesn't have themselves in their own power. Their fears run them, their walls control them. Their need to escape governs every move they make. So when faced with real intimacy, instead of surrendering to it, they sabotage it. They convince themselves, "I don't need this. I'm better off alone." They were too clingy, too intense, too much. It's easier for them to rewrite the story than to face the truth that they're running from love, because love exposes the cracks they don't want to repair. Now here's where it gets brutal for them. Because fear of intimacy doesn't go away. It doesn't magically vanish when they ghost you. It doesn't dissolve when they jump into a rebound. No. It follows them everywhere. It poisons every connection. That's why you'll see avoidance repeat the same cycle with every partner. Things start off exciting. They lean in just enough to hook someone. Then the moment intimacy starts to deepen, boom, they pull back. They start arguments. They shut down. It's not you, it's their fear, and that fear ruins everything. Let's bring some psychology into this. Research on attachment styles shows that avoidants suppress attachment needs, but suppression doesn't erase those needs. It only buries them. And the more they bury them, the more anxious and dysregulated they become under the surface. So while you're out here blaming yourself, asking, "What did I do wrong?" the truth is, their hidden struggle is that they can't even accept the love they crave. They crave it desperately, but when it's in front of them, they reject it, because intimacy is scarier than loss. Being seen is scarier than being alone. And here's the part that should set you free. You could have been perfect. You could have played every card right. You could have loved them flawlessly, and it still wouldn't have been enough, because it was never about you. It was about their fear of being vulnerable, their fear of needing someone, their fear of letting the walls down and risking heartbreak. So they chose the devil they knew, loneliness, over the risk of intimacy. But here's where the too late part comes in. Because intimacy doesn't disappear. The need for connection doesn't dissolve just because they push it away. It lingers, it grows, it gnaws at them. And the longer they avoid it, the more it costs them. They'll watch other people build the very thing they rejected with you. They'll see couples growing together, evolving, finding strength in love. And deep down, they'll feel the ache of what they ran from. And here's the kicker. By the time they admit it, you'll already be gone. Marcus Aurelius said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." For you, their avoidance is the obstacle, but it's also the way forward. Because once you see this truth, once you understand that they fear intimacy more than losing you, you stop chasing. You stop begging for a love they were never going to allow themselves to receive. You stop bargaining with someone whose biggest battle is with their own reflection, and you start choosing yourself. So here's what I want you to remember. When you sit there wondering if they miss you, when you catch yourself asking if they'll come back, remind yourself of this hidden struggle. It's not that they didn't love you, it's that loving you was too real, too raw, too exposing. And instead of facing that, they chose to run. That's not strength, that's not victory, that's fear. Plain and simple. And the longer they deny it, the more it eats them alive. So don't envy their silence. Don't worship their distance. Don't imagine their detachment as power. Because behind the cold exterior, there's a hidden struggle they'll never say out loud. They feared intimacy more than losing you, and that choice will haunt them long after you've moved. This is where you break the cycle. Let's get real. You've just sat through one of the heaviest truths you'll ever hear about your avoidant ex. You've seen the masks ripped off. You've seen the hidden struggles they'll never admit. Not to you, not to anyone, not even to themselves. You've seen their prison of control. You've seen their fear of intimacy. You've seen how silence punishes them more than it ever punished you. And you've seen the regret they cannot outrun. So here's the question. What are you going to do with that knowledge? Because knowledge is nothing without action. You can sit here nodding along, replaying the video, feeling like you get it now. But unless you let this truth sink deep into your soul and change the way you see yourself, you'll fall right back into the same cycle. And I refuse to let that happen to you. Here's what I need you to understand. Your avoidant ex is not your savior. They're not your closure. They're not your redemption. They're a mirror. They were put in your life to show you exactly where your own wounds were hiding, exactly what you tolerated too long, exactly where your boundaries collapsed. They were the test. But you are the lesson. Because what you've survived with them isn't the end of your story. It's the ignition point of your transformation. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Your avoidant ex was the impediment. Their avoidance, their silence, their walls, that was the thing standing in your way. But guess what? That obstacle is the way, because if you let it, this pain can become your power. This heartbreak can become your fuel. This silence can become the sharpest clarity you've ever known. So here's my message to you. Stop chasing. Stop waiting. Stop bargaining with someone who couldn't even show up for themselves, let alone for you. Because while they're stuck replaying the same cycle, you have a choice. You can evolve. You can detach. You can become the version of yourself who doesn't settle for breadcrumbs, who doesn't beg for love, who doesn't hand over their worth to someone too scared to see it. And that's when everything changes. Now let's be practical for a second. If you've been with me through this entire series, through the volumes, through the deep dives, through the raw truths most people don't have the courage to face, then you know this isn't just a channel. This is a movement, a community, a family of people who are done being defined by the people who couldn't love them right. And if you're serious about stepping into that next version of yourself, you need to stick with me. So do me a favor right now, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, because what's coming next isn't just content, it's life-changing. It's the roadmap to making sure you never settle, never fold, and never hand over your power again. And one more thing. I want you to anchor this moment in your mind. You heard the secret mantra earlier. Their regret is my release. But now I want to give you one final mantra to walk away with. Something you can carry not just into the comments, but into your daily life. Write this down. Say it out loud. Type it in the comments if you're brave enough. I don't chase ghosts. I build empires. That's it. That's the energy you need to embody moving forward. Because the moment you stop chasing the ghost of what could have been, you finally have the freedom to build the empire of what will be. Your healing, your peace, your future. Seneca said, "Life is very short and anxious for those who forget the past, neglect the present, and fear the future." That's your avoidant ex in one line. Forgetting the past, neglecting the present, fearing the future. But you're not living like that anymore. You're not hiding. You're not shrinking. You're not waiting for someone else to validate you. You're owning your story. You're stepping into your clarity. You're refusing to fold for people who can't even face themselves. That's your power. That's your edge. So here's how we'll end this. When you close this video, I don't want you spiraling back into memories. I don't want you scrolling their socials. I don't want you replaying conversations that went nowhere. I want you to do one thing: stand up, look in the mirror, and remind yourself their hidden struggles are not my prison. Their regret is not my responsibility. Their silence is not my defeat. You survived them. You'll rise without them. And one day they'll look back and realize exactly what they lost. But by then, you'll be too far gone, too healed, too evolved, too powerful to ever look back. So thank you for being here. Thank you for investing this time into yourself instead of wasting another second chasing someone who was never ready for what you offered. The longer you walk in this clarity, the more magnetic, undeniable, and unshakable you become. So subscribe. Stay locked in. Keep walking this path with me, because your story isn't over, it's just beginning. And trust me, the best is yet to come.